I mean, the odds of them just like busting into a graffiti door covered apartment and just finding a podcaster, but the wrong one, is probably pretty high.
For real. No, there's other podcasts, and I'm not going to name any names because, anonymity and stuff, but there's like another podcast in this building that like I listen to.
So I know you've like done a world tour about this and are probably sick of talking about it, but just for context for the listener, DHS came to you because you tweeted what about
this
ICE
is
agents?
Jake Flores.
Yeah, this is
by the
Jake
way.
Flores of Pod Damn America and Stand Up and
Feral jokes.
at Feral Jokes on Twitter. But yeah, so what happened? Just briefly. You don't have to get into it.
Elevator pitch for the joke, basically. Jokes about how cultural appropriation is really a dumb thing to be arguing about while ICE exists. I found it really funny that the internet was doing all of it's like BuzzFeed shit where you're supposed to get mad at like fucking white kid wearing a sombrero in a Mexican restaurant, like contrasted with the reality that there's this ICE fucking concentration camp shit happening. This is like last Cinco de Mayo. I was thinking about this, and so I tweeted this joke about how like, hey, what if you killed an ICE agent? Then you should probably be allowed to wear the sombrero. Like the joke was like, the premise is sort of like, what if you could do something so unracist that we all just let you get away with the shit that's kind of racist, which is the cultural appropriation shit.
Right.
Doesn't really matter. Yada, yada, yada. It's a big accordion bit, just sort of keeps exaggerating and getting more and more weird. The bit is like, the more you actually did this, the more you actually fought some sort of like man on the ground war against ICE, the more racist the shit you're allowed to do would get. So when I do it in stand up, it's funny because it just keeps getting more and more like specific, like shit that would be weird for a white person to do. Like, for example, like, if you were like 20 kills into this thing, you get to wear like, you'd probably be allowed to wear like a big oversized copyright infringement airbrushed Looney Tunes t-shirt.
Have you thought about making this joke into a video game?
Actually, I just realized I should make those fucking t-shirts for merch, like the Looney Tunes thing. It's just got my name or whatever. I don't know.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
they had to know they were kind of doing you a favor as a comic by like giving you that credibility, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about it from their perspective, I think it probably felt like a really bad episode of the X-Files or something, like for them to have to come, see this bogus fucking thing unfold and be kind of. They didn't seem like they were taking it super seriously. It seemed like they were like, yeah, we have to check this out, but like they got that I was a comedian. Because like in order to find me, you would have had to fucking look me up and shit. Right. It's like very obvious, advertised.
Man. It would have been.
So were you just trying to convince them that you don't have any influence? Was that basically?
Or weapons?
Just like, no, I swear to God, nobody listens.
I feel like if you don't have any weapons or like, plans or blueprints in your apartment, then I think that's probably what they were like doing their due diligence for.
I mean, apparently it's covered in hammers. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it is fucking weird in here. Like, I think if they wanted to, they could have made some weird case of like looking at all this podcasting equipment and like the fucking various like. I mean, the place does look like a meth lab because I have a giant tarp hanging from the ceiling that catches all this water and then pipes it out the window because there's like leaking ceiling.
Oh, that's clever.
So like, it looks like a fucking. They could have, if they wanted to, tried to pin something on me. I think.
Yeah.
But mostly, they just. They were talking about influence and stuff, and I was just really hungover, and I didn't give a shit. And I was also like, whatever is going to happen is already happening, So if I'm going to go to jail, I'm going to fucking at least say my piece to these people before I go to jail. So I just explained to them, way I honestly thought about it, which especially at that time, I had way less followers and, way less influence over like anything.
Right.
So, I just told them like, hey, why don't you go fuck with Roseanne and Alex Jones? Because they're like pizza gators and shit.
Right.
And if you're like, I don't believe you that you're worried about this shit if you're not going after them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, what's funny about that is that the guy kind of nodded in agreement. He's like, oh, okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
And then later on, Alex Jones got deplatformed. Roseanne lost her show, yada, yada, yada. But what was really funny about this is that, so I looked into it because I was kind of curious to, whether I could FOIA my file and stuff, and whether I was going to get another fucking visit from the feds,
Yeah.
And I think what's happened, I'm not entirely sure, but this seems to be the story, is that they the Trump administration dissolved that part of Homeland Security, the domestic terrorism task force, because, and this is probably like a Stephen Miller thing, they were tired of them going after Nazis and shit.
Right.
So they were just like, stop investigating American terrorists because 90% of them are fucking, white supremacists
On our side.
Right,
Yeah.
guys. So as a weird byproduct of that, I think my shit just got thrown out, which is like, bad, but good for me.
Yeah.
Right.
These are our guys.
Yeah.
Who you guys? Nazis.
Yeah.
All of the white dudes who shoot people except for Stephen Paddock. Those are our guys.
Yeah.
We all, some of the homework we did was basically listening to specifically the Nick DiPaolo. Hey, there's a dude walking through the background.
My roommate Kyle.
What up, Kyle? But
The
yeah,
Nyctopologist.
the Nick DiPaologist, that specific episode, that was like part of the reason I wanted to have you on, is just to, I guess, I feel like we've had conversations, you and I, about like this weird corner of the world we live in where like we're trying to say that it is okay to make jokes, but then shit like that happens and you're like, well, at a certain point you have to kind of have some moral stance, but like that weird world of like, yeah, we should defend comics being able to say stuff, but like some people are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're living in some sort of grand experiment with this dirtbag left shit, because the entire theory of it is that you can have a fucking adult sense of humor and be ironic. And I think that's probably the fucking word, is irony with a capital I, and still have good politics. And I don't fucking know. I really, I don't, and I love fucked up comedy, so I don't really know what to do about all of it.
It's honestly refreshing to like, because I feel like you publicly struggled with this, and like I definitely internally struggle with it, because like I think fucked up shit is funny, but like I don't know. To me, there's like a way where it's like there's actual like activism, and then comedy is totally a different thing. But I'm not sure if that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, something that you said, I think, on that episode was like there's this myth of like some sort of connection between what's funny and what's true, and it's like clearly some like sort of heinous reactionary shit can be really funny if like it's articulated by someone with any sort of comedic skill, and it doesn't mean that they're like right about anything or that you agree with them, but like also large fluffy baby Pete Holmes routinely says this thing about how like if I make a joke about drunk driving, like I'm and the audience laughs, then I think that someone is more likely to drive drunk that night. Specific, you know what I mean?
Who cares what he thinks?
I'm just saying that like that. I mean, like as someone who like listens to Come Town and like isn't stoked about it, or like turns it off when my friends are in the car, like that sort of shit. It's something that I think about all the time.
Yeah.
Hometown is definitely a podcast that you listen to in like incognito mode.
Yeah, I remember specifically one time I was driving a car and listening to it, and there was like a homeless person asking for money, and I rolled down the window to give them money, and I was like, I don't want them to know I'm listening to this. Just, I got to turn this off.
2 women comedians were staying with me, but our house was too gross, so they ended up getting an Airbnb anyway, which is added insult to injury. But I was driving them to their Airbnb that they'd chosen over our disgusting house, and then I turned on the car, and like whatever I was listening to last starts playing through my speakers, and it was Come Town, and they knew exactly what it was, and because they live in New York, and it was really, really embarrassing because they were like, why are you listening to that? And I had a justification because Stav was on your show, so I was like, I was just doing research because he's coming to town, so I was just
Well, it is like, I mean, that is a similar feeling to when you open up your laptop to give a presentation at work and fucking porn starts or something. Right. But I mean, there's
but everybody watches porn.
But it's like porn that implies you may hate black people. Like it's like I don't know.
Well, a lot of porn also does.
To pornography though, because it is like you know, porn isn't woke. Porn is problematic.
Right.
But you watch it in the incognito fucking browser alone, you know, not in public and not around people because, like, you're like, well, you know, I'm getting something out of this. This is like a you know, this perverted experience where you're like, the rules of normal shit don't apply to this. This isn't like a movie. I'm not going to review it and then go, I can't believe this character did that, or it's like an entirely different experience. And I think that on some level, irony operates in the same way. Like, there's a reason that Cumtown has to exist in its own isolated, like separate thing like that. Mm-hmm. And we all sort of have this, like, you know, gross feeling about it when we're like caught listening to it in public and stuff, or like, you know, or you talk to your fucking, you know, your gross friend, and you're like, you know, between you and me, you know,
right.
And I mean, I think it's also like that because when you talk about art exists on like a spectrum, or arguably anyway, on one end being like propaganda that's just overt, like I am trying to affect society with this, right. And then on the other end there's you know, like a pornographic sense of art, which is that, you know, society be damned, the entire point of this is to evoke like pleasure, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean, it makes sense that there's comedy like that, because what the fuck is the point of comedy? It's to laugh and feel good. It's not you know, to change the world and speak to fucking power or whatever, the way every fucking asshole is doing it right now,
right?
And that's why Cumtown is so much fucking funnier than like The Daily Show or something like that, you know?
Right.
Yeah. There's something that really resonates to me about the idea that, like, which I had never really heard articulated to such an extent or in this context of like the disconnect between truth and humor. Like I think that it's like the Cumtown riffs that are like you know, routinely deeply problematic or whatever, like rely on narratives that are like damaging, but it's a narrative that we all already have access to, and it's just like a pattern recognition thing where you're just like, oh, this jives with this pattern that I already have like internalized, and like I don't know.
You were talking about this, Jake, on the episode with in the Nyctopologist episode, how you were like, am I actually laughing and it's not because it's ironic? Like, I couldn't exactly tell what you were saying, but I've thought this before. Like, am I just laughing because I'm laughing at the bad thing and it's not the irony that I'm laughing at? Because I feel that way. Like, when I hear racist shit sometimes, I laugh at it because it's shocking. But it's funny it's funny when someone doesn't care because you aren't supposed to not care. Like, most racist shit. It's not funny when people are like coded racist.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like, now when people just say something absolutely ridiculous, not the N-word, but like when when you're in public and hear an old lady say something terrible, you're just like, I laugh because I'm just like, you horrible old bitch. And it's funny to me. But it's wrong that it's funny because it's probably not funny to someone who's like actually affected by it. You know what I mean? So I wonder sometimes, but like, I think it's funny when people say stuff like that about women or like violent stuff about women, but I also am not a woman that like has had a history where that, I don't know.
Oh, I think this is probably a good time to bring up the XXXTentacion cataclysm. Mm-hmm. So what's her name? Dina Hashem? Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's Dinah.
Oh, really? Okay, Dinah.
I'm fairly sure, but I may just be remembering my friend with an extremely New Jersey accent saying her name.
But yeah, she Comedy Central tweeted a video of her doing this joke, and it's basically like XXXTentacion was, when he was murdered, was on his way to buy a car with $50,000 in cash, and then he got murdered and robbed, probably in the other order, robbed and murdered. And like, that's tragic, but also it would be a really good advertisement for Venmo. And like, people lost their fucking minds. And like,
well, people are sending her like death threats and rape threats and shit, which, you know, basically that shit only happens to like women comics.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like
her family's address, right?
I mean, well, I can talk a little bit about this from like ground zero. I do agree that this
Jake
happens.
Flores is at the 9/11 site right now.
Yeah. That's where all of us record our podcast.
He's squatting in the ruins.
this does happen way more to women. I will say I got some death threats, and people really fucking hate me on the internet, and I got like my nightmare DMs and emails and shit. But that's, partially I'm doing a specific thing, so a lot of people are going to get really pissed off at me. But the only reason I bring that up is because this happened, and it raised a lot of interesting like arguments and points in the entire comedy scene up here, especially because it's fucked up, right? She made a joke. It's a pretty easy joke. It's like, not hard to understand what she was saying. Fucking this, people that have nothing to do with comedy, I think, these just like rabid sort of tween hip hop fans of this dead SoundCloud rapper, then decide to start harassing her and doxing her and sending her death threats and stuff like that. Then this fucking game show host guy gets involved, who's on Comedy Central. I keep forgetting his name because I never fucking heard
James
of him
Davis or something. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, something like that. He gets involved, and he's I can't remember exactly what he said, but he's sort of like, egged them on, I think, because and this is where it's gonna get complicated, man. I think that guy's probably an asshole and that he shouldn't have done that. But I also, like, if he was just commenting, I don't know if he's like entirely at fault, because there's something that's being unspoken about this in comedy, I think, which is that like, and this is irrelevant. I'm going to put this out there. This is just one note that is not really that relevant to this, but there is this thing when black men get canceled in America where like people are way more like, fuck that guy.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Like, Johnny Depp is just walking around making movies and shit too. He also beats up women, so like I understand from a black guy's perspective, I think like why, you might dunk on her back, but he didn't dunk on her. He fucking was a dick about it and, egged on this horrible shit that's happening. But I mean, the other thing about this is that like, okay, so I didn't understand the story as it unfolded because one major part of it that I think everyone got wrong at the beginning was that they thought that Comedy Central took the clip down in response to the mob, right? And that caused a bunch of the fucking libertarian free speech to go like, Comedy Central, you're a coward, which is hilarious because like Viacom doesn't give a shit about you either way. They don't like you and they don't dislike you. They just do whatever the fuck they do to make money. So, the fact that you think Comedy Central has some sort of a pro-comedy agenda is like, you're a fucking idiot, right? But that's not what happened. What happened is her management took it down as a response to the threats they were getting. So the reason I'm kind of stuck on that is because a lot of people took this opportunity to frame this as like cancel culture. Like a lot of people would like, see, look, these fucking liberal snowflakes or whatever will take down fucking anyone, even if it's a woman, comedian, and all this shit. And I mean, I don't know. I don't like cancel culture. I'm a fucking comic. I get people that demand me to take shit down all the time.
Yeah.
The thing is, I just don't fucking do it. I don't give a shit.
Right.
And I make all my own shit. So I don't have any network that's like pressuring me into or out of doing anything like that. And so that's just kind of how I work around it. I think these people often conflate like a lot of different things. Some being just bad reactions and people not liking you, and they conflate that with like censorship and stuff like that. It's not really the case, and I think that's why like the free speech crowd is trying to make this an issue where they're framing this, this harassment and this attack as cancel culture, when what it really is a mob of assholes online doxing someone, which is what they fucking do all the time. The Legion of Skanks does this to people, and somehow now they're making this differentiation. Where they're really against it, and oh my god, and you know why? The difference is because like it's a comedian and it's someone on TV, so their ideology is the rules just apply in any direction where it benefits a comedian.
Yeah,
right?
I think people have like, and like honestly, like a lot of comics that I think like I agree with on most shit are like defending Dinah or Dina, which I think is good, but I don't think they would be defending someone they didn't like in that way. And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I think a lot of people's principles.
I think the problem isn't that they're defending her. I think that your problem was that, because from what you said, that your problem was that they were bringing up his abuse, which does not even need to be brought up. Like, the fact that you're, like, you can defend her joke even if he was, like, regardless of whether or not he was a good guy. At least that was the anyway. Sorry to speak for you.
No, I mean that's part of it too. It's like it's
saying basically implying that it was okay that he died is bad, and I do agree with you.
And I don't think her joke did that.
No, it didn't
at all. But I think
some comics did after.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of people weighing in on shit that were like, it's good that he's dead, and it's like he was definitely like a piece of shit dude, but it's weird. I don't know, like. It was a young black man who died in a murder totally unrelated to the abuse that happened, and it's like, yeah, I mean, making a joke about that, I think making jokes about fucked up shit is fine.
Yeah.
But you actually have to have that line. You can't just selectively be like, I agree with this because he's an abuser.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like you have to be able to hold the idea in your head that it's reasonably funny and also insensitive. And
it was funny, and she did even say, and it seemed in the clip, I don't know this person, but in the clip, but I've seen her do stand up like in other clips, never in person, I don't think, unless she came to New Orleans.
Yeah.
But like she's very funny.
Yeah.
I know I've either seen her in person or like on other anyway. But no, she's very funny.
She's one of the only people that was like really good on roast battle.
Yeah, I saw her roast Jeff showed me a clip of her on Roast Battle where this is so lame that I'm saying her joke back, but it's amazing. She talks about this dude's, it's in line, it seems like, with who she is. Like she has a joke about a dude's mom dying in a motorcycle accident and being like, yeah, you're also a road feature that nobody notices. And it was amazing. I was like, holy shit, you're a fucking genius. So like this joke, it's not like she's racist. Anyway, what? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I gotta take this break.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Go show Dasha the room. Oh, I have some parliaments that you left.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. I bought so many packs of cigarettes for the hurricane. I cannot justify buying more for a while.
Dude, I bought a pack of, Surefine, the brand of they make butter. They just like
I was thinking cigarettes.
They're like the well version of many grocery products.
Yeah. Like a best choice.
Exactly. Yeah. I got
I used to, just to cut you off for a second, like we would always get the like off-brand like everything.
Yeah.
Growing up, and like the fucking the cereal with the kangaroo.
Yeah.
We would get like that version. Yeah, it came in a bag instead of a box.
Yeah.
It was that. Whenever I would go over to someone else's house and they had the like real thing, I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
There's something about society I don't quite understand.
Yeah. Anyway, so I got like a big pack of saltines so that I could eat saltines and peanut butter when the power went out, which it did not do, and so I was just eating saltines and peanut butter for no reason. Yeah.
It's a good snack, though.
Yeah, and one sleeve was normal. Mm-hmm. The other 3 had 0 salt on them.
Oh,
it was like communion wafers.
I bought Rouse's brand peanut butter because I was like, it's the exact same thing as Jif in theory. It's the same ingredients, same calories, same nutritional information.
Yeah.
Like, it has to taste the same, and it did not.
No,
it doesn't. Jif. It says it doesn't have as much. It says it has the same amount of sugar, but it must have more sugar because it tastes so much better.
Well, I mean, it's just like that's kind of how the
still tastes okay.
Yeah, but it's like that's how the off brands like operate. They just okay, these are the stats we have to hit, and they don't actually give a shit what it tastes like. They just need to appear
right. But how can it be the same thing and not?
It's not the same thing. It just has the same 12 nutritional facts.
Right.
Yeah,
well, I mean, it tastes okay. It's still way better than Peter Pan. I hate Peter Pan.
Peter Pan too sweet.
Yeah, too sweet. Yeah. Like I actually prefer like Jif. Jif is more of a junk food to me. The Rouse's peanut butter tastes healthier, but it's just as unhealthy. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm like, I might as well have Jif if it's just as unhealthy.
I just don't.
Do you remember the first time you had the fucking peanut butter with the like oil on top, and you're like, what the
fuck this? Yeah, dude.
Hell no.
It's like what? I have to burn calories in order to mix it.
You better pay me a living wage to eat this fucking peanut butter. I'm doing labor right now.
No, it fucking is awful. And then you spill the oil, inevitably. It just like runs down the side of the thing because you stir too vigorously.
I tried to use that shit as like peanut oil to like cook with one time, and that's apparently not what it is. Thing.
Did it smoke? Did it have like a low smoking point?
I mean, it just like burnt. Yeah, it smelled weird.
It's just oil. There's no peanuts in it. Because it's just oil that's separated from the peanuts.
I think that there's probably
isn't that what is oil?
What I don't know what anything is.
Me neither.
I was gonna say what it was all the time, confidently, but I don't know.
Like if
it's fat.
If like an alien abducted me and was like, tell me about
oil,
or just like tell me about like your culture.
How does a light bulb work? And be like, got me. I have no idea.
Or be like, so I don't get how anything works.
Yeah.
I wake up, I'm comfortable for some reason. I have absolutely no skills.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm even alive.
Yeah.
There's a good episode of like the Current Affairs podcast where they talked about like the sort of epistemological question of like can you say that you know something if you just heard it from an authority? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And like that is so much of our like
we don't have firsthand knowledge of like anything. No.
Yeah. And like it's a real I mean and that's why when conservatives are like just what some fucking Harvard scientist says climate change is real, you
right.
know? Like
they have a small point.
Yeah, well I mean I can't remember what it was, but it was like I think it was
they got some small points.
It was like Aldous Huxley or somebody. I'm gonna cut this because I know that's wrong, but he was basically like
I feel like there's like a specific like saying Aldous Huxley or somebody is specific enough about a kind of
vibe,
person.
yeah.
That's fine.
but basically he was someone was like
someone with an Aldous Huxley vibe.
Yeah.
This is how I feel about knowledge.
Yeah. But he was just like, if some asshole comes up to me and is like, prove that the world is round, I wouldn't be able to do it. Like
of course you can't.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't prove. You would have to take someone to the Arctic in the past and in the Arctic now in order to like really give them a good you know what I'm saying? Like if you wanted to show them firsthand what's happening and not through like pictures.
Well, yeah, I mean it also just happens so slowly. That's something that's a class that I took in grad school. It's called Slow Violence, and it was about depicting in fiction, finding a way to dramatize climate change so that it actually is motivating.
It wasn't about a dream where I can't punch fast enough.
I started watching The Nanny from the beginning.
I have those dreams too.
And I loved that show growing up. And
that's the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger as a nanny?
Shut up. You know The Nanny with Fran Drescher?
No. What's the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie? Did you ever watch
The Nanny? Fran Fine? No, it's a series. It was on TV.
I mean, I didn't I'm aware of it.
You're aware of it?
Yeah.
Oh my God, this was like my favorite show growing up.
Okay.
And it's so good. Fran Fine is the nanny. She's from Flushing, and she ends up being this like, she's like, everyone would love it. In the first episode, or in the first 4 episodes, they mentioned global warming a bunch because it was being talked about in like the early 90s. And there's one kid that has like a lot of anxiety about it. And like the youngest kid. So anyway, wow, watch The Nanny. I cannot believe there's people my age who do not know about it. But they mentioned Trump and Hillary Clinton in the same episode, which is really weird.
It's like The Simpsons.
Yeah.
There's so many rap songs that like mention Trump before he was like how we all know him now, where they're like bragging about
I know.
Donald Trump dollars and shit, and you're like, oh man, that didn't age well.
Jake, how'd it go? Did she sign Elise in blood?
Wait, did she hear us?
No, she looked over at one point and realized that like
she was on cam.
Yeah,
she was on Omegle.
Did that freak her out or?
Dude, I don't know what the fuck just happened. I'm like, this has to be like someone's trying to catfish me or something because, she wandered up and she's all like frazzled and weird and she's like 19 or something and she's like, dressed really skimpy and stuff. I mean, it's fucking hot outside, so like everyone is.
Right.
But,
yeah.
So she's walking
got all this fucking paranoia about this is like a Cumtown psyop or whatever.
Right.
And so she goes, I'm retarded. And I'm like, huh? What? And she goes, I'm sorry. I walked all the way here from Manhattan and like, my brain's frazzled or whatever. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to use that word. And I was like, no, it's not the word.
It's not the word. It's like, why did you just say that?
Yeah. It sounds like you're doing a bit because the fucking Cumtown people think that I had sex with a mentally disabled woman and all this shit.
Oh.
See what I'm saying? Like,
wait, I am so confused about that.
Yeah, why'd you do that, dude?
No, but like, why did that ever start?
It was cool.
No, but was that just Like,
okay,
I thought that was a Kyle Kinane bit. All right, tell me. But go on. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, he does have a bit about.
But keep on going. You can keep on going about the roommate thing, but eventually I want to hear you speak.
No. I'll tell you right now.
Cool.
All right.
Because I mean, it was funny at first. Now it's fucking annoying.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Fucking death threats because they think I had sex with a retarded woman. Okay, so on Come Town, Nick told a story, right? And the story was about a rumor he heard about some comic,
right,
who may have had sex with a mentally disabled woman in like a car outside of a show or something, right?
Specifically Down syndrome, I believe.
Didn't he frame it as like a blind item or something? Like, I know who it is, but I won't say it or something. I don't remember. Anyway, go on.
Here's what happened. Here's what happened, right?
You're the expert.
I know everything there is to know about the story.
Yeah.
Firsthand.
He fucking he stopped himself when he's telling the story, and he goes, "Oh, I was going to say the guy's name, but actually I'm not going to say the guy's name because if it's not true, this is like a really slanderous fucking thing to like say it about somebody. So he wanted to protect the comedian. So then he told this story, and then as a bit, Come Town Redditors just went, they were like, "Who is it?" And they just, as a bit, they just started saying it's me. Right. Doesn't make any sense. I don't have a fucking car. Nick told me who it is. It's some guy in fucking Baltimore.
That's the reason it doesn't make sense, dude.
But they never cleared it up. They never cleared it up on your behalf, right? They were never like it wasn't him.
No, he did. Like on the show.
Oh,
he was
did?
like,
okay.
It's not Jake. Like, shut up,
Yeah.
And but like, these are, they're just all fucking trolls. So
it doesn't matter.
The bit is just to keep it fucking going, right? But it's been going so my sister asked me about this last week.
Oh my God.
This is like taking on its fucking life of its own. I get these insane, demented emails.
It's like the Ted Cruz is the Zodiac killer joke, but you have no power at all, so it actually like sucks for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I kind of had a friend break up with Mullen a while back because, he just decided to fucking put his foot down and like, stick by some shit he was saying that I think sucks pretty hard. And like he mentioned that, and he was like, hey man, I'm sorry that they're fucking doing this, but if I tell them to stop, they're just gonna go harder. Like they don't respect me either,
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, dude, I don't give a shit. I mean, I'm not like putting that on him. It's just annoying that it exists.
Right. It's just now that that's not.
I mean, it is
fault.
funny. Like I was on stage at a show in like Oklahoma City when I was on that tour last time, and like, from the audience, I just heard someone go, "What happened to the parking lot, Jake?" And like that shit's funny.
Also, I thought for a while people were also saying it was the comic that like quit comedy because he was being bullied. That we know who used to do comedy here. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But that was then they moved on to you. But for a while, I definitely heard that, and I was like, that was funnier to me, even though I knew it wasn't true. I was like, that's a funnier rumor than it being Jake Flores.
Do you have any interest in talking about like the nature of your falling out? Because I think that a lot of people have no idea what the fuck we're talking about. No pressure.
Yeah.
No, I don't give a shit. I would like to talk about it.
Talk about it.
Please talk about it.
No. I mean, dude, I've been friends with Nick for a long time, and like, he fucking got Come Town off the ground as a way of like utilizing this following he had because he's like a famous internet troll. And I don't know, man. I mean, I fucking liked it. That was funny. I had all these thoughts about how it's like, yeah, it's fucking funny, but he doesn't actually mean it. And he's affiliated with Chapo, and the whole idea of like the dirtbag left and all that stuff is this ideological, like you can separate everything stuff, right? And with Come Town, they had that famous New Yorker piece where people were sort of incorrectly smearing it as like an alt-right show or something like that, right?
Right.
And their famous defense of it is like, this is not a show, it's not a left-wing show, it's not a right-wing show, it's a show about fucking your father or whatever, right?
Yeah.
This is nihilistic Irish show.
I love that you sanitized it from being gay with your dad,
fucking your father,
to making love to your father.
Yeah, I forgot what the fuck it was.
Go on.
But like, and I do believe that the show itself and the comedy is just irony shit.
Yeah.
And I like it still. I mean, I stopped listening to it because now it's like my friend that I'm fucking mad at, and I'm gonna listen to it for an hour or put it in my head, But I mean, I listened to the show for the last few years or whatever, and I do think that it's really funny in all the specific ways that we've discussed or whatever. But the thing is, I don't think Nick is apolitical. I don't think that he's like he's sort of tried to take this idea that he had as a young man all the way to its like full fucking, extension, which is that the only thing he believes in is like the joke, right? And comedy and stuff like that. But I don't think that's true because, he periodically does chime in and talk about all of these, like, this Dinah Hayesham controversy and like the fucking Legion of Skanks when they booked Milo Yiannopoulos and that sort of stuff. He speaks very seriously about this stuff. And if you listen to what he's saying, he's a fucking free speech dork. And it sucks, man, because like he's so popular on the left. And, I think he'll, I don't know. I mean, he'll probably vote for Bernie Sanders or whatever, right? If he votes at all. But his ideology is still that of these sort of like right-wing comedy seller Kurt Metzger types.
Right.
And I don't think that you can be unideological as a person.
Right.
And so, and also like that also, I don't care. I'm not going on a fucking crusade against this dude. I only had to really start thinking about this when it started affecting me because I've been minding my own fucking business, doing my own shit. I got on Chapo once, got a bump, made my podcast, and I'm happy. Like I quit my day job. I'm fucking fine, right? But there's a reactionary thread that runs from like fucking Amber to Red Scare to Come Town, right? Yeah. And everyone just kind of ignored it for a long time and just thought, well, it'll just go away, I think, or whatever. Or I don't know. And I think part of the reason everyone wanted to ignore this is because Come Town's so fucking funny, Like you don't want to have to deal with, maybe this fucking guy kind of sucks,
Right.
I don't know. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But I don't know. I mean, they think I'm fucking crazy. The last time I talked to Nick, he told me he thinks that I'm acting like Jen Kirkman or whatever. And
oh my
Jesus
God.
Christ.
I feel like
that is quite a charge.
I just feel like if you show any sincerity at all, then you're a fucking asshole. You're not Jen Kirkman because you're just like, I don't know. I feel like, we live in a society where maybe something does matter occasionally.
Has she blocked you?
Jen Kirkman? Yeah. No, I've never interacted with
She's blocked
with
me.
Jen
Has
Kirkman.
she blocked you?
I actually just told this story on the podcast Blocked Party, like right before this. But
really?
I've got a rare Pokemon in that Jen Kirkman blocked me before 2016.
Wait, so he thinks that you sound like Jen Kirkman just because you were like, you had a political point of view, basically.
Basically. Here's what happened, I think, is that, you kind of get stuck whatever fucking age you're at when you get rich, I think. And Nick got rich off of a podcast where he acts like a 14-year-old, right? And so I think he's frustrated that everyone around him is not also acting like a fucking 14-year-old because he has a bunch of fans that are fucking 14-year-olds, But like, I don't think that it's entirely irrational or like weird at all that a bunch of adults that work in media developed more of an interest in history and politics after Donald Trump became the fucking president. It's a pretty normal fucking thing that happened, And I think what we're kind of looking at is like, the concept of like Western liberalism just has this like, this detachment that you fall into. And a lot of people are free to live their entire lives without really having a relationship with their own state or like the world, really.
Right.
And I think that he thinks that that's normal and that this is an aberration.
That's the default. Yeah.
Right. I think the other way around, like we were actually pretty dumb a few years ago when we were just like, comedy is the most important thing to me,
Right.
And so I think he's fucking frustrated with like what he sees as, like me kind of developing interest in things and like, and doing all this stuff I'm doing as like, I mean, he's a very cynical fucking person. So he's going to look at this and go like, oh, you're just trying to cash in and become like the Antifa comedian or whatever. That's another thing is like,
yeah, a lot of money in that.
Yeah, you look really rich.
Charlottesville had a big effect on me, and also talking to a lot of my shitty old libertarian comedian friends about Charlottesville had a big effect on me, and it made me realize I think there is something important to be told about, not so much about Antifa itself, but about the way it's being framed by like the alt-right and libertarians and shit like that, right?
Yeah, so right. Yeah, sorry, go.
I did a bunch of fucking journalistic shit and podcasting and TV spots and stuff where I talked about this stuff because I read a lot of shit about it and I met a lot of people, and then it became somewhat associated with me just in the way that, like, I don't know, I mean, journalists get associated with the things that they study,
right?
And so I think that's another thing that caused those reactionaries in like the Cumtown Red Scare world to sort of like cringe and screenshot me and text each other, because they all share an opinion that the entire concept of Antifa is bad because it's like, it's like lame. It's like a bad aesthetic.
Dorky,
and like,
right.
It's like, oh, you're just some shitty guy that's just like trying to dress up and play fucking action hero or whatever. And so they associated me with that, and I think that they like think that I don't know, like that's part of this narrative of like, oh, I went off the fucking deep end and like I'm obsessed with this. But I had a few bad fights with my shitty old libertarian friends because like I think that they got the brainworms from it. That's
right.
Yeah.
There's an interesting. I feel like the whole dirtbag left thing opened up a very important space where the sort of like power grabby sanctimony of liberals, like there's an alternative to it that isn't the libertarian douchebag thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
Well, right, but like it's like, okay, so it was really, really annoying to see every woman in the suburbs be like, we need to stand up against Donald Trump. And I'm like, okay, you have 10 followers, calm down. Like getting messages just like, why aren't you saying anything? And it's like, I mean, you can just tweet about, whatever. And you don't always have to be like, I don't have a following, I'm not powerful. But like also shitting on people who do have followings. Like I feel like there becomes a point where like once you actually do develop a following, you actually are somewhat responsible, not for only being like a resistance dork or even being a resistance dork, but for having a point of view and occasionally being sincere and like standing for something.
Right.
But like when you built your whole perspective on like people who speak up for things online are fucking losers, it's like, of course, intuitively, you know the difference between, and also I don't care if people have 10 followers and they're just like, we need to defeat Donald Trump or whatever. Like they're not the worst people in the world.
Yeah.
But it is sort of nauseating.
I mean, I think part of the underlying like thing with all of this is that like there's a lot of people who kind of whether explicitly or just implicitly believe that there's a dichotomy between like enjoying your life and trying to affect change in the world.
Right.
And like there's a lot of people who think like if you dip your toes into one, you're fucking done with the other.
Right.
And I think comedy especially, like there's like a very like tough middle ground when the world is like horrible, but like your natural defense mechanism that got you into comedy in the first place is to laugh at all the fucking horrible shit.
Right.
Where it's like, okay, what responsibility do I have to the world, and how much can I just like enjoy my life and understand that like I'm not that, important, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And the other thing with comedy is that like it's one of the sort of like the sharpest examples of the sort of modern millennial idea of like the person is the brand, because you're not in a band, you're a fucking person,
right?
And you are both the product and like you're just a human being attached to it. And so
especially with like Twitter and podcasting where it's like you're so available to everybody.
Yeah,
like, you have to be necessarily.
Why this happens, but I think that people like they look at like comedians that have an interest in something like politics, and then they go like, oh, this person must be cynically using this as a way to sort of corner some market and get all this money and accolades and shit, and they're not even doing activism and all this stuff. And the thing is like, I am interested in a lot of like political shit. My act is not, it's a separate thing. It's all about poppers and shit. Dumb shit,
I'm so with you on this recreational poppers fucking thing too. They're amazing.
Yeah, they fucking rule, man. But and it's like maybe sometimes thoughtful shit makes it into my act because I'm just writing with my brain, which is a thing, thinking about all this stuff. But like, act is not like a fucking highly political thing. I'm a person that is a comedian and also has this podcast and also writes and also does all these other things. They're not swirled together into one fucking product.
And you're allowed to compartmentalize. And also, like, I think it's okay if, like, I feel dumb saying as a comedian because it's another one of those things where it's like if you say, whatever.
I identify as a comic.
Right, but like, we do comedy in New Orleans, but you're still experiencing the very basic level of doing comedy for an audience. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's not my career. I have other jobs, but I like. Sometimes I feel bad when right-wing people really, really like my jokes.
This is okay. I will let you continue. It's just like this is the feeling that of my few strong feelings. The strongest feeling that I have about Come Town is like if your audience is like significantly reactionary, then you're fucking up. Like if you're not doing enough to alienate those people, then you're fucking up.
Right.
And like even if you're being ironic, like a lot of people.
But it's hard for any comic who doesn't do like specifically left-wing stuff. Like right-wing people are going to think you're funny if you're funny, which is also a compliment kind of, but it's also kind of an insult.
Right. I mean, it's different when you're doing 5 minutes versus when you're doing a 2-hour podcast.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah.
No, you're right. But it's different from Come Town. I was talking about comedy, not Come Town. Yeah. Sorry, go.
I'm not saying you're funny.
I'll just interject for a second.
Yeah, do it.
It's not, political ideologies are not also like these fucking hard and fast lines in the sand. Like, you can make someone who is kind of a shitty fucking conservative laugh about something that has nothing to do with that, really.
Right.
But you're correct to point out the Come Town thing because, like, the people that are laughing at Come Town who are reactionaries are laughing at it for reactionary reasons.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
Linked up the person and the thing,
Yeah.
Right.
But, like, I know what you mean. I mean, doing stand-up sometimes, you're like, oh, fuck, a cop just laughed at something I said.
Right.
Dude, it was about bagels,
Right. Or like,
I opened for fucking Chris Titus one time. It's a very weird thing. He like doesn't use a microphone. He uses a headset. It was like I was the most wrong person to fucking open for him. But I don't know, it went fine.
You did a TED Talk with Chris Titus.
He was cool, but like I talked to him and he was like, yeah, man, I never wanted to be this guy, but like, fucking my audience is just all right-wing people, so my act has to be to move them slightly to the left. And I was like, that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I mean, he's like getting rich off it or whatever, and he was like a cool guy. He was like pretty funny, but it's like, what a weird fucking corner.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
If you want to show your apartment to another person, MD is urinating, so now is the perfect time. If you have like an Adam that wants to work in the room.
It's a Anna Kachin, but spelled differently or something.
Is that how you pronounce it? Oh, I'm learning so much on this episode. But
it's funny that we all do all this shit online, so we have no idea how to pronounce any of our people's names.
I was talking to my 17, maybe 18-year-old cousin who's extremely online, and I just discovered that he like has good politics and listens to good shit, but like there's this narrative that like online isn't the real world and like you're too online or whatever, and like to a certain extent that is a reasonable argument, but also like I don't know a lot of people who don't spend most of their time on the internet, even if they're boomers. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like the culture wars or whatever they called them in the 90s is like are alive and well, and like the idea that this doesn't matter. I mean, this is something that you are at pains to point out on a regular basis, is that like Chapo has more Patreon donations than DSA has members, right? That is a level of political influence that is significant on the left.
Yeah.
And like anything going on in that sort of horrible
I also
orbit.
feel like I should disclose that I think Come Town is fucking hilarious.
No, I mean, and this is something that I really appreciate about you, Jake, is like you refuse, you've said this a couple of times, you refuse to say that something isn't funny if you think it's funny, even if it's like extremely awful. And
yeah,
like,
well, that would be such a transparent move to be like, suddenly I'm mad at this thing. Now it's not funny. But people do that shit all the time.
Yeah.
And when you watch someone do it, it's so obvious what they're doing, right? I saw somebody the other day that said, like, and this is like a common take when like men get canceled, but like, Yusef Roach fucking turns out he was a really bad guy. He did some shit, and some fucking person tweeted like, the real problem was the people that thought he was funny before this or whatever. And it's like, how the fuck was I supposed to know? He was funny, you know?
Yeah.
And like, are you telling me that like every person who ever laughed at Louis C.K. is somehow like complicit in rape culture?
Yeah, his joke about Monopoly somehow has to do with rape culture.
Also, that's shitty to his victims. It's like actively shitting on them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them were his victims because they were trying to work with him because they thought it was fucking funny, right?
Yeah.
My sort of hobby horse
trade by the fucking person when they do this shit.
Yeah. My sort of hobby horse about this is like the left ostensibly has these have these sort of like criminal legal system reform views, but when it comes to how they punish and how they like obsessively try to end people.
It's a big inconsistency that the left tends to have, where they're like, "Well, I'm a prison abolitionist, but Louis C.K. should be in the gulag or whatever."
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, dude. Exactly.
Yeah.
There has to be some kind of consistency there, where it's like, okay, the whole idea behind like cancel culture, or like, I feel like it's getting slightly better with the like no platform thing.
Yeah,
like,
I think no platforming is reasonable.
Yeah, especially when someone already has so much money that they'll be fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, this is part of the Milo thing, but yeah, go on.
But it's like, okay, that's a really good step to like keep people safe and reward people who like don't do extremely fucked up stuff, who also are talented, because like there's so many people who are like really good at shit who aren't going around doing fucked up shit or whatever. But there has to be some kind of consistency between like the idea that people can heal and they're like to a certain extent a product of their circumstances, where it's like you have to be able to like bring people back into the fold without like completely fucking up, you know, the person they did harm to.
Right.
Like, there has to be like some kind of like reconciliation.
The
there.
person that they harmed has to be actively involved in the process, and if they have to choose to do that, which is the hard part, because most people wouldn't want to do that.
It's harder than I think a lot of people think it is, but like actually having some idea of forgiveness and like thinking that that's gonna make the world a better place.
But intuitively, I do feel like when it comes to like comedy versus like, we are not the legal system, and like when it comes to a person like Youssef, like seeing all the things that I've seen, like I don't think that there should be a path to restoration for him. It seems like he has done things so manipulatively for so long, so like horrific. Like the accounts women shared were so horrific. Like, I don't think he deserves to ever be a comedian again. I mean, he'd already quit comedy, but like, I don't think he should go to jail, but I do think that like, I understand what you're saying about the way that we have internalized the carceral mindset.
Exactly. Yeah.
I understand
That's
that,
exactly
but I also think that like, someone who has done that, like there is such thing, and it is extremely rare, because like a lot of these people have done like one or two things that are fucked up, and it's like, especially people that we know, like that we know in our own scene, like they've done some things that are like, oh, that was really shitty to women, and then some people's reaction is like, let's cancel them, and then some people's reaction is let's ignore it. And I think that like neither is good, but I also think that with someone who has done something so like, there's just such a pattern. I don't think that they should ever, not about what they deserve or not. I just don't believe that I don't believe that women could ever feel safe or with him around again. Like,
no, yeah, I mean,
it's case to case. I'm just saying, like, I do think
that is yeah, I totally agree with you.
But I don't think that he should go to jail. Like, I don't think that anyone should go to jail, but I just think that like, and I don't want his life to end at all. I don't want him to be harmed. I just like, I don't know. There are people who I do think that there's no path to restoration.
I think people should just take this kind of like internal questioning more seriously.
Yeah.
Because it's like really easy to, when someone does something fucking awful, to write them off, or when someone does something kind of bad, to be like, well, I liked them, so I'm going to defend it.
Right.
Or I didn't like them to begin with, so I'm going to double down on how much I fucking hate them. And it's like, all of that shit's really understandable, but you have to have some sort of fucking consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have I don't know enough about the Youssef thing to have an opinion about like whether or not he's rehabilitable, but like it's
pretty horrific stuff.
My sister has written two viral essays. One was about her stalker,
yes,
and one was about Aziz Ansari. And her thing is like, there's no garbage island we can send these people to. We have to live with them,
of course,
whether or not.
It's hilarious that Australia
but I did,
was
in your podcast. So Sachi Azura in your podcast, in the Nick Dipologist one, like she was talking about how comedy is a privilege and how like.
If you get on stage, congratulations. Yeah. You got stage time.
So it's like, we're talking about a privilege. We're not talking, like, I do think that, like, yes, there's a path to
totally agree.
Yeah. But it's like, I don't think that, there's no garbage island. I totally agree. But, like, the idea that
Except
they should
Australia.
But the idea that they should be welcomed back into this field that they used to victimize people over and over and over again is ridiculous. However, I don't think that if you see them, you need to spit in their fucking face. Like, I don't know.
Oh, milkshakes are fine. Spit is the kind of milkshake.
I don't think that Yusuf needs it. That's a weird, I don't know. I've only met Yusuf once, and I thought he was so cool, and I was so excited to meet him, and it was when I was in Austin, and then and then we followed each other on Twitter, but I don't know him. But anyway. Sorry.
We all just turned and looked at you simultaneously.
We're like, okay, now you talk, Jake.
I had something and I just forgot.
I'm so sorry.
No,
no, it's okay. The fucking beer's doing its job.
Yeah,
I'm so glad you're also drinking right now.
I know, we're drinking.
Yeah. This is the first time we've recorded with someone who's not in the fucking room.
Yeah, I wasn't going to tell you that because I didn't want you to be like, oh no, this is going to be a disaster. But you're the first Skyped in guest.
Oh no! I don't give a shit.
Well, now that it's working, you don't give a shit.
Yeah, that's the reason it's a disaster, not because we're actively talking shit about like a bunch of people that are ostensibly in the same world that we are.
Well, no, but I mean,
I remember what I was going to say.
Go ahead.
Comedy's a privilege, right? I have to to take myself out of this every once in a while and literally look at big picture. How silly it is that we're even arguing about all this shit in the world of comedy, because like I'm a person who got into comedy from the outside. Like I kind of thought it was lame, and I was like, I'm gonna try to make it cool though, and then I did it for a long time. And
Classic centrist move, try and fix it from the inside. Go on.
I feel like people my age, like we all kind of got into it at the same time, and now we're getting older, and a lot of people are like having to reckon with being over 30 or something like that, and then like going like, oh shit, is this like my career? Can it be my career? Do I just lie and tell people it's my career forever and continue having a day job or whatever, all this stuff? But like, there's this thing that happens when you talk about cancel culture, where like the Skanks kids and the Cumtown subredditors and shit kind of have this like feeling of like, we have a right to do stand up, and like it feels just to take yourself out of it, try to apply it to something else that's a hobby. Like, imagine arguing that we have a right to fucking skateboard.
Or we have a right for people to not only... Everyone can paint, but, like, I have a right for people to buy my paintings.
Right,
exactly. There's that, too. A lot of the implications are like, well, everyone has a right to make money. Like, that's like a very, like...
Right, that pisses me off a lot.
I talk and it's the same people that actively argue against, you just having a right to, like, have...
Basic rights,
right. Yeah.
Healthcare, fucking... free rent, free college, that sort of stuff. The way they look at it is you have a right to make money, but also in this extremely immature chosen path where like everyone else in my family works at a fucking, some boring ass shit. And I'm like, but I am a comedian, Oh, fuck you. That is like, this is so childish, to look at that as something that you have like some sort of inherent fucking constitutional right to. It's insane that any of us are getting to do this. So if you are in this world and you get canceled, I mean, the fucking first thing is like, well, I guess you don't get to come do this fun fucking thing anymore. You should probably go take the, you should go somewhere to therapy.
Go on a retreat.
I guess what I'm saying at the very least, the least important thing about this is whether the person gets to do stand up.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
there's too much of it.
So that definitely is, but like. For some fucking reason, people look to comics as like a group of people who might have some sort of answers.
The truth tellers.
Yeah, I mean, and it's insane. So like the ways that we like internally deal with things, I feel like unfortunately do have some kind of implications like beyond just our communities, which is insane because like not that many people are really that into comedy, but it has this weird ripple effect.
Well, I mean, now that it's the cheapest thing to produce on Netflix, go ahead.
There's just this big fucking hollow, empty, like vacuous hole in like what all art plays anymore. I think they're really like just dystopian, Black Mirror-ish kind of thing about what's going on with all this podcast stuff right now. Is that I think that we've reached like a peak internet point where all pretense of what art does has sort of gone out the window. Like it used to be this abstract thing where like you make a TV show and then people like that TV show or whatever. Podcasting it cuts out all the middleman, and it's just I fucking want to feel like I'm friends with this person.
Yeah.
And it's the parasocial thing. It cuts out all. I mean, people are spending hours and hours and hours just listening to people they've never met have conversations.
Yep.
And
I've met you like twice, and you're on this podcast. So yeah,
Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's happening right now, you know.
Yeah.
And so you look at that and you go, well, why the fuck? Why is that? Why is this thing wildly popular that, you know, if you'd have told me about this 10 years ago, I would have thought that's a crazy story from like Japan or some weird shit. Right? Like, it would be like an unexplainable, like, yeah, the more people are interested in listening to three guys sit around and tell dick jokes and fucking talk about their, you know, relationships with each other than like people went to go see fucking Godzilla or some shit.
Yeah.
Right.
So, what's going on there, and I think that this is kind of important, is, you know, there's a Marxist idea that a lot of people subscribe to, a lot of the fucking old school, like it's still 1917 Marxists, which is that, you know, there's the fucking base and the superstructure, right? So society is the base, and then, you know, everyone's working and shit, and all the things that actually happen in society form the base, and then arts and culture and religion and all that stuff are the end result of society. And that's why, like, the dirtbag left, for example, is so against like identity politics and representation in movies as being like a fucking thing that changes society, because like representation and culture doesn't fucking fix shit.
Right. The argument is that there's no feedback mechanism.
Right?
It's just one way. Yeah.
A good observation to start with is that it usually doesn't work like that. And usually when someone tells you it works like that, they're full of shit. The funniest Onion article ever to me is the guy who says, I'm fighting Trump with my art. And then it's just a fucking guy. He's got a painting of Trump with like Putin for eyeballs and shit. So flaccid. It doesn't work.
Right.
But it's not fucking 1917 anymore. And some of this stuff is having an effect, right?
Yeah,
because art is not a painting hanging in a fucking window that you walk past on your way to go work in a factory anymore. It's like this shit.
Right.
And it's like
people who are in your ear while you do the dishes every day.
Yeah. And it's causing like, I mean, I think I've fucking argued with like, you know, some leftists about this. I think Joe Rogan is having a fucking significant impact on what's happening in the fucking world right now.
For sure.
And that doesn't fit into the fucking Marxist-based superstructure thing structurally, but like this is new shit. There's new shit. They didn't have fucking podcasts back then.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Andrew Yang is a fucking a name everyone knows, partially because of the fucking Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just did Chapo, apparently.
Oh shit.
Dead ass. Yeah.
You say dead ass so much.
I'm sorry. I'm from the West Coast. I don't know. But yeah, no, I think that like I do think that this is the thing that frustrates me, is that I do think that representation matters, and I do think that like identity politics are important. It's just that the way that they're weaponized by liberals as like a way to consolidate power fucking infuriates me. And it
of course, when people are like, black people hate Bernie Sanders, I'm just like, eat your own ass.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's like the least worst example. I don't know. I don't know. But
yeah,
it really
that happens.
My thing
a
with
lot.
identity politics is like I feel like
white women always tell me women of color don't like Bernie Sanders.
If you can organize like a mass of people around a common identity, and there are specific ideas that you're trying to like get into the world through like organizing people with a shared identity, that makes sense. And that is like an effective tool to organizing and change and like worthwhile. But if identity politics to you just means that like it's possible that someone with a shared identity can necessarily represent all of the people with that identity, it's like probably not.
Well, I think I have a very brief thing, which is that like I think that people overestimate the power of the human imagination, and if you're like I don't know, like a black woman, and like you've literally never seen anyone do something who was also a black woman, the idea that you can just like metaphorically extrapolate that like you are capable of it, even though you've never seen someone like you do it in those specific ways, is like, that is a fundamental myth of liberalism. I really get that.
The problem with like the identity politics thing is like the my friend Katie Halper put it in a way that I really think was well said, which is that we're not against identity politics, we're against the weaponization of identity.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. She's great. Yeah.
I've never listened to her show, but
I only follow her on Twitter, and I should have listened to that episode, but she's great.
But it really is so cynically just the whole there are definitely like dudes who love Bernie who are like awful on the internet, but the
like Jake Flores,
the way that was the way it was distilled into this
sex with a woman in a car.
Terrible. But the way that, like, you know, some consulting firm just like noticed it happening on a small scale and was like, this is the foundational text of our campaign is upsetting. Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, like, I mean, I don't think we're ever gonna fucking put that genie back in the bottle. Like that is
every year is 2016 for the rest of our lives. Yeah.
Yeah, people are going to try and buy gay Oreos in March every year for the rest of our lives.
I want to see what they would do with that, actually.
Yeah.
The identity politics are going to be wielded cynically to such an extent from here forward forever that it's going to ruin any chance that like proper identity politics actually ever had of getting anything done, and that really sucks. And that is why everyone's so fucking mad, and that's why really smart people make podcasts so they make fun of all that shit. But the problem is, you know, a lot of bad shit comes from sitting around and getting really mad about something and just cringing at it all the time. And I think that's why some of those fucking Red Scare people came all the way around. And instead of understanding what fucking I just quoted Katie on saying, they now are against the entirety of the thing from like, and from a textbook reactionary perspective.
The idea that class first
politics just are a reaction to that. You know?
Right.
But like class first is something that, like, even if you do have a class first analysis of, like, you know, identity or not identity, but if you have a class first analysis of like politics, I still think that you cannot deny that race plays into that, because like race and class are so and so, but like for two white women to be like, I mean, oh sorry, just hit it with my nails, but
they look nice.
Thank you. They're 5 weeks out on a manicure. But anyway, for two white women to be like, I mean, class is the thing. It's just like, I mean, fuck you. Well,
ironically, two very well-off white women too.
Yeah.
You know, are making this argument about everything being
Are they well off? Like, their podcast makes them well off. Were they born well off?
Oh yeah, they're descended from kulaks.
They're from
obviously.
upper middle class, like academic backgrounds.
Okay, yeah.
One of them was a poet before this.
Yeah.
Poet.
I
worked at a pizza restaurant before this, and she was
I'm from an upper middle class background, but I've been stupid enough that I've had very bad jobs. But I like also think that class first is stupid because, you know, I mean, the very well used example of like a college professor, like there are college professors that have gotten handcuffed outside of their own homes because they lost.
Skip Gates. Yeah.
Like race is always going to matter.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's very shitty to say it doesn't.
Well, yeah. I mean, the whole thing is that like intersectionality, when liberals use it, has nothing to do with class. Like that's the one thing that it doesn't intersect with is class. But like the idea is that class is part of the equation, and like I do think that there are a lot of people who are like, you know, class first at the expense, so that class first to such an extent that I can call Hillary Clinton a cunt without like with impunity or whatever.
Which is fine. I mean, she is, but like, I also think that's about who she is. Like, I don't know. I've had a bottle of red wine.
Yeah, I'm not editing it out. Whatever you want me to edit out, I'm not doing it.
Well, I mean, I know what you mean, because it's like, I don't know. There's an entire generation of people and at the forefront of it, there's this weird ass fucking online, you know, left comedy politics scene that is all working their way through the woods right now and trying to sort this shit out. And another thing is like people have been wrong about some stuff in the scene, and it's all right.
Yeah.
I think. I'm saying that because I know I have. I know when I first got like really, really fucking radicalized, I was absolutely like a class reductionist.
Mm-hmm. Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
I used to hate you in like 2015 and 2016. I was like, I followed you because I thought you were really funny, but I was like, when other women I knew, and there was a huge shift. Mm-hmm. Like, there's been a huge shift. A lot of women I knew who hated Bernie Sanders now like Bernie Sanders. Mm-hmm. A lot of women I knew who said anyone who basically shit on women for liking Hillary Clinton. I used to think that anyone who shit on Hillary Clinton was an asshole. Like, I really was I took a huge shift just from seeing this election and how fucking wrong it was, and learning more and realizing, like, meeting people that were like, I can't vote for Hillary Clinton because I am a black person. Like, identity actually was the opposite of what they were saying. Anyway, sorry, keep on going.
Keep going.
I feel weird about all that because
I got mad at Benjamin because he voted for Jill Stein.
I regret not being more of a dick during the last election, because it was like I felt like the whole support for like Hillary was like honestly like kind of like terrifying and misguided, and that like people could only do that if they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about.
And you feel like you treated them with kid gloves or whatever.
I panicked. I panicked about Trump. I knew Trump was going to be president, and I
didn't want
to
be unpopular. Which is
no, I mean, I'm not laughing at you because I think it's bad. Like, I'm laughing at you because I so deeply relate. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, so I just shut the fuck up. Yeah.
I mean, like, in 2016, like, not
very well.
I caucused in Iowa, which means that my political position was publicly available by eyesight, and like,
because you had to stand up and walk.
Yeah, you literally. Yeah, of the 5 people that I love most in this world, 2 of them caucused for Hillary in Iowa, one of which was my girlfriend at the time, who is currently still my girlfriend.
Oh. Yeah, but we were all in a different place.
But they both come around. That's the thing. And like,
because also we were in a position where I phone banged for Hillary, and I was panicking because I knew Donald Trump was going to be the fucking president. Yeah. Not that I'm a genius, but I was like,
you and Nathan J. Robinson just
but also
wave.
The incumbent.
Living in Louisiana,
every time there's an incumbent for 8 years, the next party gets the presidency. So already that's like an obvious one.
Okay.
But anyway, sorry. Talk more about how you shifted from a class reductionist to having a more well-rounded perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that was kind of just the point I was going to make. I don't really know how it happened, and I'm glad it did. And, I learned shit and got better and had conversations like this. And look at you. You just said, you fucking hated me in 2016. I probably hated you.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's some glimmer of hope that like we're not entirely alienating people. I guess that speaks to the point of like you were talking earlier about how people will say like, oh, Twitter's not real and online's not real. And I just don't think that's the case. I mean, I think it's just the medium of the fucking times.
It's changed my life. I know that sounds so dorky because I have a full life outside of Twitter. Most of my best friends are not on Twitter. Mm-hmm. I have a full life outside of it. But in terms of politics and in terms of like social issues, it has completely reshaped the way I view the world. And I think it's great.
I mean, I have an uncle who has 5 children, I think. I don't know. He has a lot of them. And he is so conservative and so reactionary. And his wife is hyper Catholic, just like trad wife kind of lady. And all of the kids are fucking radicalized to the max. Like
because of the internet.
God bless Mr. Internet. Like it's just like, thank fucking God.
Yeah, my cousin grew up with my grandmother. She's lived with my grandmother who's like, the person I was saying I laugh when people say racist stuff, that's who I'm talking about. But like they lived together their whole lives, and like she's been online since she was 14, and she like has followed. It's crazy how much she knows.
Yeah.
She knows everything. She understands the dirtbag left, and she doesn't even like necessarily follow it, but she knows what that is.
Yeah.
And she's 22. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking wild.
Have you felt...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, have you felt like tokenized in any way? You have...
I'm a Chicano.
You're biracial. Yeah. And like, have you felt tokenized and used to be like, look, I have a POC friend who also agrees with me.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, like, and this is probably coming from some weird fucking dark pit of my own ego or whatever. But like, I just feel like I am like a weird shiftable, like you can call me either of the things, and people just use it very cynically in whatever the worst way possible is.
Whatever the most convenient.
In 2016 for 2015, when I was arguing about Bernie Sanders as a white man, to every fucking white woman ever, you're a fucking white man, right? And then if it's like it's someone that agrees with me, then they'll be like, see, my Mexican friend agrees with me or whatever. So it's almost never used in good faith, and it is really blurry. And also being like of Latin origin is like just super complicated to begin with. It's not, no pun intended, black and white. I mean, it's your fucking descended from Spaniards who then colonized, fucking Aztecs and Mayans and shit. And then within those countries, there's all this crazy class shit. And, there's all these complex feelings you have about it from within that world too. I mean, I've had various friends of mine, just accuse me straight up of being like a Rachel Dolezal. And I've also had fucking friends of mine, like Mexican friends of mine, like, fucking hit me up and go like, dude, I hate when you talk about how you don't feel Mexican because you look like me and my Mexican friends. And it sounds like you're like trying to fucking, to cast that off in some way. And so it's just like, no one's ever fucking happy. I don't know. I'm a frustrating race.
I think it was the Nick DiPaolo episode of your show. You talked about being like every time. Like basically being like,
wait, hold on. I love that we might be like misrepresenting this to sound like Nick DiPaolo did.
Yeah.
Nick DiPaolo just with Sachi Ajura and Luisa Diaz and Trevor. What was his name?
His name's T.
Got it.
Yeah. The episode where Nick DiPaolo told the episode where Nick DiPaolo said, "This is how I tuck in my pants."
The interview.
Yeah.
I was just so impressed with myself that I remembered the names. But
I don't remember what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, you were talking about like the Luisa. I think it was Luisa who was basically like no one. I've never told someone that I didn't book why I didn't book them.
No, I think about this a lot.
Yeah, and you were talking about like how you're like we don't like when people don't book you, they're like we don't need another white man, and then you're basically tokenized in both directions.
I was trying to explain that to her, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately because I think that I still disagree with her, and I think that they reacted really hard to that, and they're like, "Oh, never."
I mean, Benjamin has said that to me before. It was just like, "Oh, yeah, that's the thing I need is another white dude on this show."
Well, sometimes there's just so many white dudes that it's like,
oh no, for sure. I mean, and this is something that you said in that episode. You were like, "Yeah, I have a bunch of like decent comedian friends who are white dudes." It's also different
in New York, where
they're never. It's going to be a year before they're on my show for this reason. But go on.
Yeah. Well, so I used to really like the podcast Race Wars when Kurt Metzger was on it when I first moved to New York.
Yeah. By the way, I only book Jews. Just if you're not Jewish, you can't do my show.
Yeah. And okay. So what's been really weird about this is like, Metzger had this podcast, and the podcast was him and Sherrod Small, and the idea was, comedians, they're fucking truth tellers, and we'll talk about anything. We'll have anyone on. It's a black guy and a white guy.
Speaking truth to power.
We fight with someone. We'll have them on the show and have a debate about it all the time. Like, it was this idea of they're trying to recreate like the Colin Quinn tough crowd sort of situation.
Right.
Like I said, fucking Mullen, that was his idol, Kurt Metzger and shit. Right. It was a thing before he went kind of crazy and left town or whatever. And it's funny because now he has a podcast that's totally reactionary where he interviews fucking Mike Cernovich and shit. So wow, that's where a lot of this thought leads, right?
Yeah.
But at the time, I mean, something about it that I liked was that, I think that there's a crisis of masculinity in the modern world, or at least in America.
Yeah.
Right?
People got to do some push-ups.
There is like nowhere to put a lot of this shit that you have inside of you as a dude. And on top of that, there is a culture that is actively just like, it feels like you're constantly just being told you're a bad person for being born a man. Right. It does sometimes. When you log on to Facebook, you will see somebody who's gone so fucking far in the other direction from this that they're just like, Facebook status update. All white men should be genocided? I think so. And you're like, what the fuck, dude? Like, what did I do, And so Metzger used to talk about this thing where when he came to New York, he would be simultaneously told by every like Hari Kondabolu type comic that like, you are the power structure and you have all the power. and then go to a club and they would go, we got too many fucking white guys, we can't book you. And I don't think that he was lying.
There's some truth to that, yeah.
Exist, and it does. And the reason it's important is because, you know, we've got this generation of fucking dudes that they're unwelcome anywhere, and they feel these sorts of pressures, and they have nowhere to put all their shit. And the only things that really offer them like welcoming open arms are fucking Jordan Peterson and Cumtown and all this shit. And that's why also Dirtbag Left is important, is because, like, you know, we need to make it like apparent that it's like, fucking, it's okay, we like you, you know. But
I mean, I totally understand where you're coming from, but I also feel like you can't totally say that these people like don't have any responsibility to like learn how to be cool
they're not
in other spaces.
You're not allowed to just be sexist because comedy's mean to you.
Like, I get how that does make those people, but it's like, man, I don't want to like completely let
I'm
those
not even
dudes off
saying
the
that
hook.
I think they're right. I'm saying that I understand
I don't think
anxiety,
you do.
and I understand why they think they're right.
Yeah.
And I understand how they would eventually throw everything up.
It's not like you think that anyone who feels this way is a monster, is what you're saying. It's not saying that you think,
And I think I can empathize to that from having, like, you know, because, like, all right, man, I'm a fucking POC, you know, technically. I'm a fucking Chicano. But, like...
like, there's, like, or a fucking, like, Hank Williams, like, or whoever the baseball player was with the asterisk. You're that guy.
Also, the fact that class, like, you can't, like, you know, ask for when you're booking a show, you can't ask for someone's, like, financial history. But, like,
Roger Maris, I finally remember.
But, like, class doesn't come into play, which is frustrating, I think, because it's, like, you know... Yeah, I understand how that's frustrating.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is that, like, I feel like when bookers have, like, an incentive to book people of color, they don't look at me and see a person of color because, like, half the audience might just fucking think I'm a white guy, you know? Mm-hmm. And so I don't feel like I benefit from that, and I also don't think I benefit, you know, so I guess, yeah, I'm saying I don't benefit from being a fucking... POC in a lot of ways, and I also don't think I benefit from being like a white dude because, you know, that anxiety is still there. My take on this all is sort of that, like, these are the anxieties that cause people to then get their ego hurt and then go fucking alt-right or whatever. I don't think that they matter. I don't think who gets booked matters, like, in any direction. Because comedy is a fucking hobby and this is like skateboarding, you know? Like, I don't give a shit when white guys talk about not getting on stage. And I also really don't give a shit when, like, marginalized people are like, you know, we have a right to fucking... I'm a working class guy, right? I fucking, like... It's laughable and bougie to me that anyone's, like, that passionate about this.
Yeah.
My struggle with this, I might be wrong. I mean... Everyone's job in America is some dumb made up fucking service bullshit. So like maybe, you know, this is entirely neoliberal. Maybe at some point we do need to treat this as labor, but like I don't think it's a meritocracy, and I don't think the way to improve the lives of artists is to do like neoliberal shit where you're like, well, people should be guaranteed careers in the arts. You know, I'm a fucking utopian. I think we just make society livable and then everyone just gets to do art.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. However, I do think that like while we're in, yes, God, I totally agree. And I fucking hate it when people think that they should be paid just because they decided one day they should do comedy. However, I will say that like, if you are like, especially in New Orleans where no one makes any money off of comedy, like no one makes any money here at all. And so when people are just, I mean, I've bitched to Michael and Benjamin about this so much.
It's a joke that you bring this up on every episode.
I know, but Jake kind of brought it up too.
Yeah, I missed it. I was urinating. Go on.
Anyway, like it is horrific how much people who are actually pretty good at comedy will be like, I'm not going to do this show unless I get paid. And I'm just like, no one gets paid. I was like, the bar doesn't even get paid. I was like, we're just doing a free show and I get a cut of the bar. And then I use that to give each comic $5.
Right.
Like, I was like, I'm like giving all of my money to you that I make just because I want to run a good show because I really like doing this.
Yeah.
So the bartender just has a bad 2 hours.
Yeah, I give the bartender more money than I give anyone just to pay her for watching the comedy. And Anyway, so like no one's making any money. So for me, like the reason that it only becomes a capitalist issue if a venue is making money off you and the performers aren't making money, then it's a capitalist issue where it's like, okay, that is exploitation.
You know, if anyone is making
anyone's making any money and the performers aren't making money.
Right.
And like I'm very transparent. Like if I ever take home when I run one monthly show, and I've run a couple other shows, and I just let the performers know what I make, and I'm like, I'm going to give you this. I made this, and it's usually the same, or they make more, and I'm like, that's fine to me. Or I'll take more if I like spent money on like posters or something like that. But I think that transparency is key for that. But also, a lot of people still just have this dumb idea that like if they do something, they should be paid, which I hate so much. But yes, I've said this on.
I think a lot of those people get that from like the lessons that have been handed down from an older generation of comedians that, you know, I mean, they just fucking, they're just little boomers and shit. And they just have neoliberal ideas about stuff, you know?
Yeah. Or the idea that like, go ahead. I was just going to say the idea that like if anyone's going to take you seriously as someone who does this for a living,
you have to make money.
Well, or it has to be like in some way analogical to some sort of 9 to 5. Like to be a comedian with a capital C, you must either write jokes 8 hours a day or go up 8 hours a night.
I've been talking about this since like fucking I started comedy basically like way back, and I'm just gonna bang this drum forever, but because I don't know what it is, but for some fucking reason comedy specifically is treated like this, and it's inhabited by people that consider themselves failures if they are not like a successful business. And the reason it's so weird to me is because like I fucking came up around musicians and shit. Right. None of my fucking punk friends are like, I'm not a good punk band if I'm not making money, you know?
Well, there's nothing inherent to the ethos of ethos of stand up that like that's like inimical to fucking the form. Like punk like if you grow up with a bunch of punk kids, like none of them are aspiring to have the same like Protestant work ethic dignity to their labor as like their dad or whatever. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know. I just I guess my assessment of that is that I think that like comedy is a very middle class thing, and
for sure
that's why people that get into it project those ideals onto it and have like a specific relationship with art that you don't see in other art forms.
Well, that's why it's considered such a bastion of free speech, is because the middle class. It's such a product of the middle class. Like the idea of free speech period is like a middle class, upper class phenomenon.
Yeah, dude, fucking like
totally.
Steve Martin is the only like fine art like old and people
Andy Kaufman and Steve Martin.
Yeah. Nobody thinks of comedy in the same way they think about like the best that culture could have like, except for like fucking Steve Martin with his like dumb banjo act for some reason.
The guy who who has an arrow going through his head in every image of him doing stand up ever.
Oh man, that's so true. Because like
he looks like he acts like the funnest guy at like a rich people party.
Right.
They're like, oh, he's hilarious.
You don't want to check?
I never got Steve Martin in like
dude.
His book is great.
I've never once laughed at that motherfucker. Yeah. He wrote an essay called "Writing is Easy" that I thought was really funny.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, fuck that dude.
Yeah. I just like
that book has been gifted to me multiple times by separate relatives.
Oh, of course. They're like, this is the one thing I know about you.
Oh, that's the one thing they know about comedy.
Right. Yeah.
Certain type of older person, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's the same with like people like worshiping like Lenny Bruce, and you try and listen to it, and you're like, you're talking about whoever like G. Gordon Liddy was before even G. Gordon Liddy, and it's like I don't know any. Like this sounds like it could be in a different language to me.
Well, I was just like, comedy's extremely temporal, so like that's just what's going on with that. I think there's no way for any of us to put ourselves into the mind of someone who was walking around the 60s and walked into a nightclub and Lenny Bruce was there.
Yeah, I mean, like, plop any of us into like a situation in any other like place or time in history, even if we could communicate with those people, we probably wouldn't make them laugh because it's like, I don't know what your fucking sensibilities are at all.
What if we were in medieval times and we were jesters? That'd be fun, you know?
Yeah, I mean, but I think all of us would probably have like a tough time like cracking jokes when there's just like a floating body outside of our house. So, you know.
Yeah.
Hey, we might have to get there though.
Yeah.
We're pretty close.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm gonna get a beer.
Yeah, do it. See, perfect. See, he knows how this podcast operates.
Yeah, you pause.
You
do more drugs.
It's like a ship of Theseus thing where it's like gradually parts are removed and then parts are replaced. Like I go pee and then I come back and I have like a full 5 minutes of like no context.
Is this even the same conversation?
Exactly.
That we were
exactly a conversation of Theseus.
Damn, I'm so proud of myself for context clues to figuring that out because I didn't know what you were talking about at first, but I was like, oh yeah, it's that ship. It's not a ship. It's like a Lego ship.
Do you remember the time I got really anxious about like some piece of continental philosophy trivia, and you were like, yeah, you got it.
I do, yes.
Yeah. I think I cut that part out, but yeah.
I remember it because you bring it up all the fucking
It made me I was very anxious. What's up, dude? Do you, I don't know what the fuck I was going to say.
Oh, sorry.
We have reached the very wet
My
part.
roommate thought I just yelled sup at him. I feel like
yeah.
Man,
this has to be a fucking nightmare to live with. I'm just screaming into microphones constantly. we're talking about.
I mean, your
like,
roommate didn't have a shirt on, and he was like walking. It was like very funny to watch.
What's your roommate's name? Kyle
Kordsmeyer.
I know him. I saw it. I thought I recognized him.
Barry Devon says hi, Kyle.
Does he remember me?
Oh yeah, he's putting a shirt on so he can come say.
How do you know him?
Comedy. I forgot.
Yeah.
Hi, Kyle. I thought that was you. Hi.
Part of me was hoping that it was just fucking Stavros Halkias like, hanging out while you're like talking bad shit about his friend.
Yeah.
My other new roommate, Dasha and Stavros.
Because when you said Kyle, and then I was like, that looks like Kyle Kordsmeyer. I was like, there's no way, because I don't think he used to live in New York. When I
just moved here.
Oh, he did? Okay, because I met him in like Texas or like somewhere else. Anyway.
Yeah.
Did he used to live in Texas?
Kyle, he came here from Memphis, right?
Yeah. Memphis! That's where!
Yeah.
It was, I did his show in Memphis or something like that. Okay, sorry. I've been to Memphis twice. Okay, sorry. Anyway, I've met Kyle a bunch.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, thanks, sorry. Sorry, Michael.
Like,
No, don't apologize to me. I'm enjoying myself very much.
Sorry, Michael. You have to cut all of this. Cause
Oh no, you don't. The things that you think I'm gonna cut and the things that I do cut are so radically different. I make you sound really smart, but when you're like endearing and adorable, I fucking keep that shit in.
Okay.
Yeah, not just you, Benjamin too.
Right. Yes.
I've never been that.
Oh,
Yes,
you're always that.
Oh, you
okay,
little
whatever.
cutie pie.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk.
Okay, let's talk about how Louis C.K. plays into all this, all this discourse about like the sincerity versus irony thing, and like what is the role of Louis C.K.
Louis J. C.K.
Louis Jennifer C.K. in all of this sort of irony versus sincerity, like taking a stand versus like not giving a shit thing.
That would be so funny if Louis C.K. tried to market fighting a UFC comedian.
Well, he's gonna check out the room in Jake's apartment soon. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
he's the next one to check out the room. Yeah,
yeah. I'm gonna just start a halfway house for canceled comedians. Well, I mean, Louis isn't an ironic comediation at all. I think he's actually rather sincere.
Yeah.
And that's why
I just means in terms of the idea of like it. The sort
I'm gonna
of
get there.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm gonna bring it around to that shit.
Yeah.
He's like I said, he's sincere, which is why he's disappointing, because he's very sincere and he had a very like confessional way of looking at the things that horrified himself about himself.
Yeah.
And I think it was very relatable, for a lot of people. And then he got Me Too'd, and he went away and he said, I'm going to think about it. And instead of coming back and doing what I think he should have done, which is fucking like, I think that he could have come back and, done stand up in some way. Like, I don't think he should be hanging out at comedy clubs. He should be like his own isolated show, because like, that's just a fuck you to any woman that's working there, or anybody else.
Right.
Assaulted.
Agreed.
But, I think he could have done stand-up at some point. But what he would have had to have done is done like a Richard Pryor thing, where he fucking then explores the fucking thing. Because, all eyes are on that thing.
Yeah.
Instead, he did what you're talking about with like, Christopher Titus or whatever, where it's like, well, okay, now my audience is right wing, I guess. A lot of right wing folks liked him to begin with because a lot of people projected stuff onto him. So, I mean, God, there's this meme I always think about that I found on the internet where it's like, it's Louis C.K. and then it's like the fucking text or whatever. And the text is just like, if a cop pulls you over and you just do everything he says, he won't kill you. You know, it's like, lives matter shit. It's like, he never said that. That's just someone imagining him saying that.
Right.
It's like all those like fake Mark Twain quotes or whatever that you see being circulated.
Yeah.
I feel I mostly agree with you, but I think the timeline would have had to be different because him and Dave Becky, who people keep fucking working with, which is insane to me.
He produced Russian Doll, which was so great.
Like they actively were trying to.
I can see why you love that show.
Like cover up this story for fucking years before it came out, and it was like a fake "I'm sorry" once it did come out. And it's like you can't apologize for something you were trying to hide.
Also, it's
That's
like
bullshit, dude.
Yeah, no one. I mean, a lot of people do talk about this, but very few people that I talk to. Everyone's like, "Well, jerking off is if someone asks you to jerk off." I'm like, no. He ruined people's careers based on it. Like before they came out, he like sabotaged people's careers, right? So it's like that's even more to me than not belittling the trauma of being sexually assaulted in that way. I'm just saying that like these people were basically told if you come out about this, then you're fucked, and that is like totally
And if that was only it, if I found out that Louis C.K. was a huge dick to a friend of mine, and like even in a vacuum outside of all the sexual assault stuff, I'd still fucking yell it from the rooftops.
Yeah.
He's a fucking asshole, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
But it's both, and you're right. And the career stuff, I mean, the Dave Becky shit is like it's worse in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it is. Because
they were working together, you know? It doesn't absolve Louis of any of this.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is, you know, okay, so most people don't understand a split between left and right ideology. Most people don't think ideologically at all. And so I don't think a lot of people understand that he was very much loved by upper class liberal types. Right. And then suddenly realized he can't make any money off of them. So he started coming out and going like, well, these kids is all trans and stuff. What the fuck? You know, and like, sorry, that was a Nick Apollo impression. I switched them. But,
did you make that thing with the kids? No, they're all trans. Who did that?
That was actually a guy who follows me on Twitter named DVNT Pinky, who's like that
was so funny.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was him. It's a guy I know, and I shared it. And he was like, thanks for using my thing. Okay, so but my point is, fucking Louis switched to to free speech, fucking campus culture. Everyone's triggered. Everyone's a snowflake, sort of shit. Very slyly, and most people wouldn't have noticed this, but we're political psychos, so we noticed it, right? Mm-hmm. So what's going on there is, I think that the types of people that are fans of Legion of Skanks, Cumtown Subreddit, and the reactionary types or whatever looked at that and didn't see that specifically. They didn't see the story there. They just saw someone who was a comedian who was trying to do comedy and then got taken down by cancel culture, and then anyone who fucking has anything to say about this in any nuanced way is just cancel culture or whatever.
Right.
Those people, I think, tend to think of comedy as its own political party, its own ideology, because they're fucking 14 years old, and like the idea being that comedians are on the front lines of some sort of theoretical free speech battle against everyone, and like, you know, it's anyone versus comedian. This is something that fucking Nick said to me a long time ago that I'm remembering now. Actually, it wasn't that long ago. Where he was just like, every single time I defend the comedian, like every single time, and like in the case of rape, dude, like what do you mean? Right. You know, like but there's just like there's a very immature, young, mostly male, I'd say, like tendency to think that, you know, comedians are these sacred things. And so those people often, I mean, they hate me because I've commented on Louis, you know, and I agreed with my friend Kath.
And Kath had an amazing take on that. And then
what was Kath's take?
Well, it was just that it's a workers' rights issue. And I agree. But also, even if, okay, so then Nick responded to her. I'm saying Nick like I've never met him, which I've not.
No, I'm not laughing.
But he responded to her, and he actually had like a very reasonable question. But what pissed me off was that he responded to her in the first place, because that's automatically going to sick like Cumtown people on her.
Right.
But his reasonable question was like, okay, so
it also violates his whole thing that he's like, I'm just into jokes, you know?
Right, exactly. He was like, I don't even care about Louis, but if you believe that this is a workers' rights issue, then what do you believe about other ex-cons who like, if I don't remember his example, but say it was an electrician. He's like, should an electrician get work after? Was that it? I forgot. But it was like,
it was that.
Yeah, it was like, should an electrician get work after they're found out to be like, how does this person make money after they get out of jail? Yeah. And it was, to me, it felt very shitty and dishonest because from only online, which is pathetic because I've literally never met Kath, but whatever, from only online, I know that they used to be friends and y'all all came up together, right? And like, I just felt like it was like very crappy for him to comment at all because that's obviously going to sick these people on her. And then I don't know if it was then or after the Red Scare girls went after her, but it was really horrific. And that's what made me sort of completely unfollow everything because I felt like they were so horrible to her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Nick and her were ever really close. I mean, they were like this, like, even when we were coming up. But that being said, he still did all that shit. And he's continuing to do this. I looked at his Twitter the other day, and it's like he's still just quote tweeting her and shit. And absolutely just acting like, well, I have no responsibility over what my fucking fans do. And I mean, there's some extent to which that's true, but he just operates in this really sneaky way where he's like, well, I'm going to do this and fucking do all these things that would cause people to harass you until you ask me to stop, and then I'll go, I'll stop,
Right.
But like, that doesn't absolve you from being an asshole for doing it to begin with.
It's like the Spider-Man thing of like, with great power comes great responsibility. If Spider-Man remained radioactive throughout the entire, thing,
webs are cum. It's
yeah, radioactive alt-right cum. Yeah.
I think I listened to a few episodes of Red Scare because I really liked, their, like, do you not want me to talk about this right now?
No. I was going to say, you really liked their body dysmorphia.
I really liked how their anorexia made me eat less. And I also, to them, I'm the fattest bitch in the world. But also, like, I also really liked a lot of their critiques of, like, liberal feminism. Yeah. But to be fair, they were mostly awful. Yeah. But they were also funny sometimes. They said some funny stuff. And so I listened to, I would say, 6 to 10 episodes. And then after the Kath thing, I, like, couldn't anymore because when one of them posted on her Instagram and was like, no one's trying to rape you, I just felt like I immediately heard just, like, I don't know. It felt extremely awful. It felt like she was saying, based on their whole history, what I heard was like, you're ugly and no one wants to rape you.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Something I'm figuring out about them is that I think that actually, so there's just, it's two of them, right? And Dasha is like, I mean, she's still complicit in all this. She still has this podcast, but I don't think she's nearly as bad as Anna.
I agree. I agree.
You look up old shit that she's tweeted from like fucking before 2016 and all this shit. It's way worse, you know. She's a self-described crypto fascist.
Yeah. I mean, she's like, she reminds me a lot of my Tradcath relatives. I
felt like Dasha, like, I don't know. I think that she's just anorexic. I think that she's just like an anorexic girl who likes Bernie Sanders and got like pulled into all this. But they're both definitely anorexic. I don't feel like that's slander. I feel like
it's not slander because they say it on every episode.
Right. They're like, we're anorexic. And I don't agree with that, but I'm just like currently trying to lose weight and was like, this makes me hate my body a lot more. This is great.
This is helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. This is helpful to me right now.
My hobby horse is that like, the left right now is very bad at self-criticism, and so like reactionaries who are able to traffic in the language of like criticism of like liberalism are making out like fucking bandits because the like people who are earnestly interested in the value system associated with like identity politics or like social justice, like people who actually give a shit about justice with a capital J are like a little bit tentative and cowardly about like criticizing the left when the left sucks ass.
I mean,
and that makes a lot of space for reactionaries to make out like bandits.
I think there's this like very central conflict with people on the left where it's like the world is extremely fucked up. The stakes are incredibly high, and people have to have incredibly specific takes to be like right about stuff. Basically, like in reality. But for anything to actually change, there has to be like a mass movement that's like built around a common, shared ideology. And you're going to write a lot of people off if you come off as a buzzkill, because so many people are apolitical,
right?
And like what they want out of life is to enjoy life, and for the most part in American society, even if your life is like pretty fucked up economically, you can eat and sleep and get maybe some level of healthcare or whatever. So, like, I think there has to be some sort of reconciliation between the ideas that you have to be right about everything and kind of like humorless when it comes to dealing with stuff that's like uncomfortable to look at, and also like the ideas that you can just sort of enjoy whatever you enjoy, and you can't be criticized for liking stuff, and that's like not the same thing as politics.
Well, like people put too much stock in like cultural products that are like explicitly propaganda, or like explicitly like trying to espouse a particular position, because most of those are just like a person who has a thought agreeing with people, like talking to people who already agree with that thought. But like there's a kind of interaction, there's a kind of ideological interaction where it's like someone is like creating entertainment, but like the first principles of that entertainment, like the assumptions that underlie that entertainment, are radical. I fucking hate this example, but like Modern Family, like normalizing homosexuality by just assuming that it's like fine,
right? Just it's a default.
Just like whatever, like good entertainment that just assumes that like worker power is like obvious. That's the powerful shit. It's not the fucking Young Turks talking to the people who. Like,
are they bad?
No, I mean they're just. I just find them very annoying. Okay. But like I don't. Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know.
No, I agree. Yeah.
All art needs to be sorry to bother you, otherwise it sucks.
See, that's where this argument goes in circles, and I kind of tend to like not want to live in a world where every art is a responsible message, or every piece of art rather. It feels entirely encumbering to me as a creative person.
Right.
It doesn't seem like everything should be propaganda, but at the same time, I mean, I feel like there should be a big fucking middle ground when we think about this, between going too fucking far, which is what a lot of these things that we're talking about are examples of, and also being like, like being somebody who thinks, every movie should be sorry to bother you or whatever.
Right. You don't have to say into a microphone 2 + 2 = 4 over and over and over again to communicate a system that from which the natural consequence is 2 + 2 = 4. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be that fucking boring. It doesn't have to be that fucking didactic in order to communicate the exact same thing.
You're reminding me of when people say, every joke should punch up, and that sort of way of looking at comedy, which I don't subscribe to those directions even really existing all the time and stuff. And it's just like, this is, at the end of the day,
anyone who
says
that
art,
just
so like,
show them a video of someone falling down and watch them not laugh. Like,
also,
come on, dude.
Well, I don't. Go ahead.
I have a metaphor for this. Every time somebody tries to tell me like, well, if you're gonna do jokes, why don't they fucking, why aren't they like this? I tell them they're acting like Christian rock musician, right? Because that is what people did with rock music, which was just its own fucking thing, and it had all these breadth of like what rock can be about. And then Christians came along and they were like, "Hey, kids, if you're gonna play guitar, why don't you make it about my specific personal agenda?"
Right.
But,
I mean,
that fucking sucks.
You say that, but like, I don't think that you are capable of like writing a joke that doesn't have in it, or at least doesn't contradict your principles of like your basic social or your socialist principles or your social justice principles. Like, I don't think that you're like anti SJW. Like, I don't think that you would fucking make a joke that like I'm trying to think of an example, and I cannot. But
I mean, I've seen. Yeah, I don't think that your comedy is like down. I don't think it punches down.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I'm saying this in defense of like someone who's not me, I guess, because like I do
totally,
right.
Yeah.
all this shit to my own like act, but I don't.
You're like, I've mastered this, but some people.
Well, I don't feel good about being dogmatic about this and telling this to everyone else. And I also do think that like art is a thing that does not fucking function if you are this unforgiving towards it. And like,
or if you,
people deserve to make artistic mistakes way more than they deserve to make actual mistakes.
Yes, I completely agree. Also, I had friends when I first started in comedy. I had a lot more friends that did not do comedy, and I still have some. But like, I was making not as many.
I've maintained several.
I still have 4.
But like, I had like new friends that I was newly doing comedy and making new comedy friends, and those fell out. Yeah. Because they were like, I was like very OkCupid, polyamorous, bisexual, and when I first started, and so every girl I knew, I was just like, maybe she'll have sex with me one day, and so I was trying to impress her, but also she would never, and also she had a boyfriend. But but she like Christina. I'm talking about Christina. Yeah. So Christina hates all comedy. Like she only liked my comedy
but
because
she loves all comedians.
Yeah, she fucked all of us. But
that's why she hates comedy.
Yeah. But she like
hate fucks comedy.
But like she and her friends would always talk about how people making fun of specifically, and I do agree in most situations, doing jokes about homeless people is fucked up. But sometimes homeless people are just hilarious. Like sometimes homeless
wearing
people
a Santa hat.
Yes, exactly. Like sometimes they just like have a cane. The other day I saw a homeless dude who was having a full-on conversation. He might not have even been homeless. He might have just been on heroin. But he was this like red-haired man. And he had one shoe, and he was holding a glittery makeup bag. Yeah. And he walked past me, and I thought he was talking to me for a second, but he was talking to a person who did not exist. And he was just like, I don't even care what they say about me. I'm doing what I want to do. And he was looking me dead in the eye. And I was just like,
he's like, you get
hell
me.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But like that, even if he's dying, that's hilarious. Like it is, I'm not going to do a joke about it. I don't have a punchline for that. But if someone did, good on them. Like I don't think that's the same thing as being like, they're so poor and stinky, yuck. Oh, like it's like,
who was the comic who like you guys Vince booked on Dragon's Den that was like very funny and also very like crackheads do this?
Oh, Sean Patton.
No. Well, no, she was from New York. She grew up in the projects, and she was like a white lady.
Oh, I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about? It doesn't matter. But
Wait.
it's just like
still Sean Patton.
Wait, like she did her own thing on Fuck Yeah?
Yeah, no, she closed on Fuck Yeah. She was just like some.
Oh, I'm not sure. I don't remember.
But she was just like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but I know we got heat because a local comic was mad that Sean Patton was making fun of a homeless guy. And I was like, Sean Patton doesn't do mean jokes. Like, he's not a mean person. Yeah. Anyway.
And Sean Patton's arguably probably pretty close to homelessness.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's like one laundry cycle away from
he has such small teeth, they're barely there. That's one thing I've noticed, is very small teeth.
Yeah, I don't know. So, you know what? This actually, like, something I've been thinking about in terms of this shit is, like, rating systems for movies and stuff like that. Yeah. Because, like, when you know...
Are you going Tipper Gore with it?
I'm, like, honestly, kind of, like... I kind of came back around, and I'm like, I really like trigger warnings and stuff like that now, because if you're like a comedian and you go at the beginning of this show, there is a fucking cost of entry here. You have to fucking, carrying the cat.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
If you want to listen to something as fucking full on nihilistic and ironic as Come Town, if there was a fucking thing you had to click to go in and go, I understand what I'm about to get into.
Terms of service.
Yeah.
Then you could sort of sift out the idea that that comedy is this fucking spraying open fire hydrant that could hit anyone and therefore it has to be super responsible.
Right.
Like I mean, this is why I keep coming back to like pornography. And
I watched Howard Stern. The first thing I ever jerked off to was the Howard Stern show when my parents would fall asleep. So I actually think that's bullshit because I think that it's always been accessible to everyone. Like it was bleeped out, like the genitals were bleeped out, but I still.
Well, sure, but you weren't someone who like if they didn't want to hear it, wouldn't hear it. Like the
reason I heard it in the fucking first place was that it was on because that channel was on. So like I don't know. I do think that like television, if it's on cable television, I do feel like it's even more accessible than like Come Town.
But I think there's also a question.
Like, this isn't going to be a perfect way of sorting this out, but this is going to be like a way of refuting the argument that art can be this irresponsible, like Sutter Kane type thing, where it's like we need to destroy this one podcast or this one metal band or whatever, or this one video game because it's irresponsibly permeating through society and driving the kids crazy and making them into school shooters and stuff. That sort of like panic about the stuff I think could be quelled if we were like to sort of enact some sort of system where we try to make it more apparent that we like elect to consume the stuff that we consume.
Sure.
Right.
And that's tricky with comedy because, I mean, part of the reason I don't do really fucked up like stand up is because most of the time I'm performing, it's in a fucking club or a bar or whatever in New York where like any random person could be in the audience. Right. And so I don't statistically want to fucking piss off some person. I try to read the room real hard or whatever. But the opposite of that is true when you have a podcast, which is that like people fucking know what they're getting into when they out the thing that you're making, which is why I think it's okay to make fucking
there aren't a lot of opportunities now for people to accidentally stumble upon a part of like a sort of global monoculture where you just like you need like you're like watching TV and you just happen upon this thing that like there's like 12 things that you could watch right now and one of them is Howard Stern. Like now it's so much more deliberate the way that people engage with culture.
I really don't want to like derail this and like have it go in a totally different direction because we've been recording for our whole lives at this point. But like it does seem like there is at least an argument that like if you want to have some sort of like claim to like credibility and authenticity, that if you're just relegating certain parts of expression to certain corners and certain parts of sincerity to other corners, that like there's an inconsistency there that's going to cause some kind of like problem eventually. Like you have to just be able to say like this is how people should be able to talk wherever the fuck they are.
I agree.
This is too abstract for me. I'm kind of
no. I think that what you're saying is like there should be some sort of standard that's just like no one should get shit for saying like if you're not saying anything extremely, I
mean, I'm not like putting any evaluative judgments on this at all. But like if you have one standard for art and art includes whatever like modern society kind of deems as art, which is like comedy and podcasts and fucking all that shit.
No, those are the only two art forms. It's comedy and podcasts.
Yeah, well, if there's one standard for that, and then there's one standard for like complete public discourse that like the normies and the children get to like have access to.
Normies and children are the same.
They're the same category. Yeah.
I mean, basically, though, it's like if there isn't some kind of
if I had not watched Howard Stern, I would be different. When I was,
you would be Jen Kirkman.
You would have straighter hair.
No, I just wouldn't have had sex when I was 14.
Yeah. Go on.
No, I mean, I just think there's like, I don't know. There might be a problem with like totally relegating like one kind of speech to one zone and one kind of speech to another zone.
I agree.
The thing that I get really hung up on, and maybe this is my neurosis, is like I have jokes that like there are like millions of people that I would not want to subject my jokes to. Like the shit about suicide is like I don't want people who have like recently interacted with suicide to have to deal with it.
But stand-up occurs in bars. So I feel like if you're talking about doing jokes, it's okay because it's like occurring to an adult audience.
But it's not. I'm not talking about children. I'm talking about people who are like I don't want to be. There's shit that I don't want to be reminded of. If someone tells a joke that I don't want to be reminded of, I fucking leave the room. And that's
okay.
Yeah, I just like.
But like, I think that if you cannot hear a joke, and if you cannot hear a joke without it affecting the course of your life, then you shouldn't go out to bars. I know that sounds shitty.
I think that's too much. I think that like
because any joke, even if it's not something that's like deeply offensive, or I definitely think there's things that are like off limits. But I also think that
I was just gonna say that like I'm not. I have no interest in like the idea of off limits. I love trigger warnings because it means that I can feel comfortable like feeling like I'm not harming anyone. Like I'm giving everyone a heads up. Like it's not like I don't think of it as a limitation of speech. I think of it as like.
But I'm talking about like doing a stand-up set. There's no trigger warnings.
Right. Edgy comedy.
What's that?
It's actually way better for like edgy comedy.
To have, I agree.
I agree. You're just like you're minimizing the people who will fucking hate it. And like maximizing the people who are receptive to it.
And to a certain extent, that's what Cumtown is like the fucking name of the podcast is kind of a trigger warning to like, are you going to like take anything? Like, this is a terrible name for a podcast. Are you going to take anything seriously that comes out of it? I don't know.
Well, that's why I'm talking about this compartmentalization. And like, I mean, you're right. Like, there's no fucking hard and fast rules across the board that are going to solve these problems at all. But we already have this shit in society. We already have social construction for stuff. We already have the concept of bars being a thing.
Right.
If you have a certain age to get into. And like, and you know, we have like movies that you have to be a certain age to go watch. We have shit that you have to sign a waiver to do. And it's not a thing that like the fucking state has to enforce. It's just like a thing that everyone involved kind of just understands, and it makes it contextualizes everything and prevents a situation where you would be. It prevents as hard as can be prevented situations where you would be in a bar and then get triggered by a
right. I mean the whole point of a bar is that they sell juice that makes you more likely to say shit that makes traumatized people miserable.
Well, also traumatized people are going to be less miserable because they're drinking the same juice.
That's true.
So
I hate ambush shows.
You hate
part of it is
what shows?
Ambush shows. I agree.
What, like every comedy show? Like what?
No, because most comedy shows are like established.
Every mic is an ambush show.
No, that's not true because not here.
Sorry, all right, go on.
In New York, every bar has a back room, and I think at some point that it had something to do with like dog fighting back in the day. This weird history of like when these bars were speakeasies, they just had like this weird interspecies like fucking dogfight shit going on, where like you would go, every fucking old man would go to this bar. It was back when only men were allowed to go to bars, and then they would like a tiger. And it's
the good old days,
pandas or something, right? And so it's funny, but all these buildings are really old, and they all have fucking rooms in the back, and so there are less ambush shows here. And just the fact that it's like in a separate room, you go out into the main room, you go, "Hey, anybody wants to watch a show? It's happening in the back." People elect to go in there. It prevents a lot of these sort of situations. I mean, at the fucking very worst, someone who went in is going to go, I don't want to watch this.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go smoke outside.
What's the rent in the room that you just that you're putting on the market?
It's very cheap for New York.
What is it?
Because it's a fucking dilapidated squat.
What is it? Tell me what.
I hate when you whisper so much, dude. It's so creepy.
You have the opposite of ASMR.
What's your rent?
I just want shit yelled at me all the time.
So it's might go up because we are applying for this. We got this loft law thing, but now we have to have our lawyers fucking fight the landlord and shit. I'm serious. I'm a lawyer.
I believe you. It's just funny.
It's the entire building had to throw down on one lawyer to represent all of us. But I just feel fucking weird saying this.
You don't have to
gasp, but I wish I could fully like portray how fucking hot and shitty it is in here and how much it is exactly worth this amount of money. But we each pay about $600.
Hell yeah,
that makes sense.
All right. Well, if Dasha doesn't work out, me and Susanna might hit you up.
Wait, if you could just follow up about whether or not that was a real person or not. I feel like that person was fake.
You saw her, right?
No, she was real.
Mary Devin was out smoking.
No, I saw her. I saw her when I came back. I know that she was a real person.
What did you think of her?
I just was like, it doesn't seem like she's actually interested in this apartment. It felt like she was just like very skeptical and weird. Like
she wouldn't make eye contact with me through the camera, even though I made intense.
Yeah, how dare she?
Intense, smoldering eye contact through the camera.
I tried to eye fuck this child.
This 19-year-old. Is no one gonna?
That's called pulling a Jake Flores.
Is no one gonna eat these ice cubes that I brought?
I already put one in my cup.
In a cat food bowl. I just brought a cat food bowl full of ice cubes.
I thought you were gonna pour whiskey into the bowl, man.
It can be done. It can be done.
Bowl whiskey.
Yeah. Oh, that was like. ASMR if ASMR were PTSD.
It's me, ASM Mario. I'm drunk. All right, we gotta wrap it up.
Yeah, right, well, that's the end of the podcast.
On that, Jake, anything you want to plug?
Yeah, what do you want to plug? To our 189 listeners.
My podcast is called Red Scare. My name is Dasha.
All right. We love you.
Yoko.
Thank you so much.
No, I can't. Yoko's over. I can't.
Oh, shit. Okay, all right. Yeah, okay. All right.
Long Day in America. I'm Feral Jokes and everything. That's it. I'm going on tour.
This has been Mark David Chapman.
New Orleans.
Are you coming?
I think I'm going to try and come back. I'm going on tour, and I'm going to... So far, I've got it booked up to Austin, and I figured,
you can do my Saturday show. It's got like 100 seats. You can sell out probably. So
it's a good show, and also me or Mary Devin will put you up in a place where people have been like, "No, we're gonna get an Airbnb."
Yes,
after
exactly.
They look at it.
Yeah, if you want to stay for free somewhere, we have houses that you can stay.
Yeah.
I have a whole guest room,
and
it has a TV.
Whoa! Hey, is it hooked up to anything?
Like a Roku.
Yeah.
Oh, it just plays Howard Stern.
Mary Devin's got a Sibian you can ride on fucking camera. So,
thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, I had a great time.
Yeah. All right. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Peace.
Yeah. Good night.